pleasant good day to everyone. This video presentation is about the architect's guidelines. This is the methods of compensation and schedule of fees in compliance with the PRBOA Resolution Number 3 Series of 2010. Ano itong PRBOA Resolution Number 3? This is the SPP documents, the 2010 Standards of Professional Practice documents. Now, what is this document? The Architect's Guidelines for Standards of Professional Practice Compliances, in short, the Architect's Guidelines, is a document that will serve as a guide for architects in determining the appropriate method of compensation to use for a particular type of architectural services, as well as its corresponding professional fees. This document, on the other hand, will also serve as reference for clients so that they will understand how architects determine the professional fees or the method of compensation being used for a particular type of architectural service. The document is now made an integral part of the IRR, or the Implementing Rules and Regulations of RA 9266, by virtue of PRBOA Resolution Number 6 Series of 2016. So shown here in the slide is that PRBOA Resolution Number 6 Series of 2016, approving, adopting, and promulgating the Architect's Guidelines as prepared and recommended by the Accredited and Integrated Professional Organization for Architects. Nagkataon na I am the one who led the formulation of this document, and I am so happy that this is my small contribution to the practice of architecture. This document now has become the official reference document for the methods of compensation and standards in the fixing of fees for professional services rendered. Now, these are the classification of methods of compensation. So the compensation can be computed based on one or a combination. So pwedeng i-combine, no, of the following methods. We have number 1 is the percentage-based fee. Number 2 is the lump sum or the fixed fee. And we have number 3 is the time-based method of compensation. Number 1 is the percentage-based fee. We'll have 3 types. First type is the percentage based on the project construction cost. This is the most common one. We have the new one is unit cost method. So ito bagong method na introduce in this particular document. And we have the value-based pricing, or the percentage of gross rentals. Ito naman ay incentive type of method of compensation, no? Parang binibigyan ng incentive yung architect for the services. Let's take a look at the percentage based on project construction cost. This is, of course, the most common worldwide, no? And even in the Philippines, it is widely used, no? It is considered as the method that is fair to both the client and the architect. This is also flexible because it adjusts accordingly. It is easy to apply. The reason why it's flexible is that the fee will vary depending on the classification of building, the complexity of building, meron tayong mga building classification from simple to complex, the construction value, the type of construction contract, as well as other adjustment factors. Now, itong adjustment factors will be discussed later on in detail because this is a new concept that is introduced in this architect's guidelines. Now, let's go to the new method, the unit cost method. Itong method na to has been applied by other professionals already, but for architects, this is the first time that we are using this, no? So for example, you have an office building project with 1,000 square meter gross floor area and 200 square meter non-GFA area. So computing for the GFA, you have to refer to Rule 7 and 8 of the revised IRR of the NBCP. Now, you have to take note of what is the prevailing construction cost, no? So you have to ask around how much is the prevailing construction cost per square meter. So let's say that the prevailing construction cost is for an office building, no, is 30,000 square meters. Example lang yan, ha? So let's say that is the prevailing, and based on the percentage of project construction cost, yung kaninang una, you are using 6% of the project construction cost as your professional fee. So with that assumptions, your fee now can be computed at 6% times the per square meter construction cost of 30,000 will give you your professional fee based on the unit cost method. That is 30,000 pesos times 6% or times 0.06 will be 1,800 pesos per square meters. So that if you have a 1,000 peso square meter GFA, your fee for that area will be 1,800 per square meter times 1,000 square meter. Your PF will be at 1.8 million. Now, for the non-GFA, since this will not entail so much architectural detailing, your fee can be half of your fee for the GFA area. So 50% of 1,800 is 900 pesos per square meter. And if the GFA is 200, just multiply it. Your fee now for the non-GFA is 180,000. So your total professional fee for the detailed architectural and engineering design services will be at 1.98 million. So you will see that it is easier to understand how the fee was determined. Clients would have better understand this because your reference is just on the floor area. So meron kasi ibang kliyente na medyo naguguluhan doon sa unang method na percentage of project construction costs, no? So with this, they will easily understand na kapag lumaki yung floor area, definitely your professional fee will also increase, no? Now, the third one, percentage-based method, is the value-based pricing or the percentage of gross rentals. Now, this type of method is used for building administration. This is an incentive type of compensation wherein the fee of the architect will be based on a chosen percentage computed on the gross rentals of a building, no? So if the architect can increase the gross rentals for the building, then certainly the fee will also increase. Now let's go to the second classification, the lump sum or the fixed fee. Before, this method is only applicable or used for government projects, because usually government projects have fixed budget already, and so you can be safe in computing your lump sum fee based on the project construction cost, no? So the project cost will not increase. Now, this method can be used also not just for government projects, but can also be used for private projects. However, you have to use this with caution, no? Dahil pag nag-lump sum ka na or nag-fix fee ka na, at medyo nag-change yung mind ng owner, lumaki yung project, lumaki yung budget, yung cost, medyo malulugi ka dahil nag-lump sum ka na, no? So, to clarify your services, the scope of your services, you have to include in your contract details, no? So the scope of services must be very detailed. It is to be clearly and fully defined at the outset or the start of the project. The client and the architect should agree on the details of the following, no? So the scope of the project, gaano ba ito kalaki, how many square meters, how many number of floors, etc., no? Schedule also for the design and approval must be agreed upon. Kung paano ang procedure for approval ng designs, kung gaano katagal kasi kung medyo maraming dadaanan yan na pasikot-sikot yung approval, magkakaroon ng delay, no? At apektado yung work schedule mo. Also, you have to agree on the length of the construction. If, for example, ang project mo ay bahay and the expected construction schedule is for 6 months, then you have to stipulate that in the contract. Kasi kung medyo may mga ibang factors that will affect the construction schedule, na let's say lumampas ng 6 months, umabot ng how many years, medyo lugi ka dahil every time pupunta ka pa rin ng site niyan, so apektado yung work schedule mo, no? So you have to check on that. Also, other variables defining the extent of services to be performed so that the architect can prepare a comprehensive estimate of work hours and overhead costs. Now, how do you compute for your lump sum or the fixed fee? Two methods may be applied to arrive at a lump sum compensation. So, hindi ito arbitrary na pag-determine ng fixed fee. You must have a basis. So, the first one is computing your fee as an appropriate percentage of the probable project construction cost of the project. Meaning, gagamitin mo muna yung first na method, yung percentage. Let's say 10 million yung construction cost, yung project cost, project construction cost, and your fee is, let's say, 10%. And so 10% of 10 million, your fee is 1 million, no? So yan ang magiging lump sum fee mo, 1 million, based on the first method. Now the second method is compute your fee, a direct development of a fixed amount of compensation by estimating the individual elements of the cost outlines plus a reasonable margin of profit, all expressed as a single lump sum. So itong second method naman, if you have previous projects already, somehow may estimate mo kung ilan ang kailangan mong staff na magtatrabaho for that project, gaano katagal gagawin, including the construction. So you can compute magkano yung magiging operational expenses mo, office, salaries, including your profit, no? So pag na-compute mo na yan, direct development ng cost, whatever is the amount you arrive at sa method na to, i-compare mo naman doon sa first method. And then after comparing, you choose which one is the better fee. Better means is would be very acceptable to the client, of course. At the same time, it is fair for you. Hindi ka naman lugi, no? So, once na finalize mo kung isa dalawang gagamitin mo, then just tell your client that that will be your lump sum or fixed fee. Let's go to the third classification, the time-based fee method of compensation. We have these types: multiple of direct personal expense, professional fee plus expenses, per diem, honorarium plus reimbursable expenses, salary cost times a multiplier plus direct cost or reimbursable expenses, per diem or hourly basis, and a retainer. So, unahin natin yung multiple of direct personnel expense. Usually, yung mga time-based fee method of compensation is applied for non-creative work. No? Just like yung MDPE na to, or multiple of direct personal expense, is applicable only to non-creative work. No? Ano ba yung mga non-creative work? Of course, pre-design is non-creative work. No? Yung mga design services, yun the best method to apply is the percentage based fee, yung unang classification. So in this time-based fee, using the multiple of direct personal expense, you have to choose a multiplier ranging from 1.5 to 2.5 depending on the office setup, overhead, experience, and complexity of project. So ito yung mga factors to consider in choosing the appropriate multiplier. So for example, may project ka na malayo, let's say Cagayan, and medyo bulubundukin yung project, so medyo complex yung gagawa ka ng site analysis, and based on experience naman, you have ample experience already. So let's say you have chosen your multiplier as 2. So with that, you have to compute first the direct cost. That is the rate per hour times the number of hours, or the rate per duration times the number of duration for that particular work. So let's have an example. Yung Cagayan kanina, ulitin natin. So we have a pre-designed service of site analysis of a recreational park in a mountainous area in Isabela, Cagayan. The working team is composed of 3 persons, including team leader. The work will last for 3 months. Team leader, the fee per month is at 50,000, and since you have 2 members, let's say each one will be at 25,000 per month, so times 2 members will be 50,000 pesos. So the total fee will be at 100,000 pesos, and since the duration is 3 months, the total direct cost will now be 300,000 pesos. Now, that direct cost will have to be multiplied by the chosen multiplier to come up with a chargeable cost. So, the total chargeable cost will be 300,000 times 2 will be at 100,000 pesos. So, that is now what you're going to charge your client. It would mean that there is an additional 300,000 pesos from the direct cost. Yung 300,000 pesos na yon will cover for your other expenses, operational expenses, office, including profit. However, there are other expenses that is not included there, and you have to reimburse it to your client. So this is the reimbursable expenses. Whatever is your chargeable cost kanina, 600,000 plus reimbursable expenses. So if the project is over 100 kilometers away from the area of operation of the architect, so let's say Cagayan is more than 100 kilometers, and so if the architect is to go there to conduct some work, whatever expenses by the architect will be part of the reimbursable expenses, and that includes transportation, housing, hotel, kung nag-stay overnight, and living allowance. Yung transportation by land or by air, and meron pang living allowance kasama, because pag pumunta doon, of course, di na makakapag-work yung architect sa iba pang projects just for that. If there will be local consultants, also the same, transportation per dime, housing and living allowance. If there will be house also, then that will be part of the reimbursable expenses. Now, if the architect will also include the technical staff, yung two members to go there, then also their expenses, transportation per time, housing will be included in the reimbursable expenses. If there will be extra sets of drawings, reports or maps, contract documents that is over the 5 copies submitted to the client, then that can be considered also as reimbursable expense. Others will be overseas and long distance calls, technical and laboratory tests. If there will be need for licenses, fees, taxes, and similar cost items needed for the project, then that is also reimbursable expenses. Let's go to the next time-based fee method, which is the professional fee plus expenses. This one naman is used where there is a continuing relationship involving a series of projects. So instead of using yung kanina na MDPE and you have a client wherein binibigyan ka ng projects palagi, let's say series of projects, mga panglima mo na yan na services, site analysis, then instead of using that one, you can use the PF plus expenses. So this is the fixed sum over and above the reimbursement for the architect's technical time and overhead. How do you do this? So you just determine how much will be your professional fee. So yung kanina, your professional fee, let's say, is 50,000 per month times 3 months, so that will be 150,000 pesos. So that is your PF. All the other expenses, yung fee for your other members, your office expenses, yung reimbursable expenses, all of that will be charged to the client. So dito sa method na to, medyo nakatipid ng konti yung client dahil hindi yung profit at saka yung mga operational expenses na naka-embed doon sa multiplier sa MDPE, dito is kung ano lang talaga yung expenses for operational and other reimbursable expenses, yun lang babayaran ng client plus your professional fee. So meron parang discount na. We have per dime honorarium plus reimbursable expenses. So this method of compensation is used for other activities or work that may be asked by your client na hindi naman part of your services, pero parang requested na additional work. So for example, as agent of the owner, like attending project related meetings, conferences, or even trips, conducting ocular inspection of possible project sites. Yung hindi naman pre-design yung service mo, pero meron ng mga identified na project sites yung owner at pinapa-inspect lang sa iyo yung possible sites na yon, no? So hindi wala kang gagawing site selection and analysis, no? So conferring with others regarding prospective investments or ventures and the like, and out-of-pocket expenses such as travel, accommodations, and also food or subsistence, no? An example of this is yun nga, pag 100 kilometers away yung project mo, and then you are to do some meetings, so meron kang per diem tsaka honorarium. Yung per diem or honorarium, kasi nga yung oras mo nauubos doon sa isang project na yan instead of doing other things if you are in the office, no? Dahil malayo yung site, naka-concentrate ka na lang doon sa project na yon, no? So you must be paid per dime. Per dime is not per day, no? It's per appearance. We have the salary cost times a multiplier plus direct cost or reimbursable expenses. Itong method of compensation na to, itong type na to, na time-based, is used by professional consulting architects, no? Dahil medyo mataas na yung level of expertise nila, you don't use the MDPE. Instead, you use the salary cost times a multiplier, wherein ang pag-determine ng direct cost ng mga part ng team, lahat ng salaries ng professional consulting architects and staff, the factor that you use is not anymore 1.5 to 2.5, but the multiplier is 3, no? So medyo mataas ang multiplier dito dahil nga sa kanilang level of expertise. So the computation is very similar to MDPE, no? Yung salary cost and then times 3 the multiplier, and add the reimbursable expenses as mentioned yung kanina. So this is best suited for projects for which the costs are difficult to predetermine, or in cases where it may become necessary to undertake additional experimental or investigative work. And this method cannot be used for services which cannot be measured by the length of time spent on his work. Kaya nga part ito ng time-based fee, because the factor that will determine, no, your fee is affected by the duration. The reimbursable costs are always billed to the client. We also have the per diem or hourly basis, and this is suited to engagements involving intermittent personal service. So yung pakonti ko ano-ano lang, pasulpot-sulpot, no? Pasulpot-sulpot na mga request ng client na hindi naman talaga part ng defined na scope of service mo doon sa contract mo, no? So the PCA is compensated for all the time he devotes to the work, including travel time, no? The per diem charge should be based on the complexity of the work involved and the extent of his experience or specialization. Again, in addition to the compensation based on per diem, expenses for travel, food, and other out-of-pocket expenses incurred while away from the home office shall be reimbursed by the client. Let's go to the last type of the time-based fee method of compensation. This is retainer. I'm sure you are familiar with this compensation method, retainer, but this is only used by consultants, no? Parang yung mga lawyer, meron silang ganyan na compensation method, retainer, on a monthly or weekly, pati mga accountants din, merong ganyan. So this is used when the services of the professional consulting architect is expected to be required at intervals over a period of time, a means of ensuring in advance that his services will be available to the client when required. So kahit na hindi mag-provide ng services yung architect during that period, pero dahil naka-retainer siya, let's say for the month, may bayad siya, may retainer fee, no? However, kapag kailangan naman siya na mag-report or gumawa ng something, then dapat gagawin ng architect, no? A stipulated amount is paid at regular intervals for which the PCA is obligated to render a certain service or to spend a certain amount of time on client's requirements. So this should be enough to pay for the minimum services required by the client. All additional services are to be paid separately. So the reimbursable expenses for travel, subsistence, and other out-of-pocket expenses incurred while away from the office should also be paid separately by the owner, not included in the retainer's fee, no? Now we have the fourth classification, the mixed methods of compensation. This is using one method of compensation on a single project. So sa isang project, pwedeng maghalo, no? Dalawang method ang pwedeng i-apply. But this may not be applicable all the time. So the method chosen is for the convenience of the outlet. For example, if you have a design project, no? So sa design project, pwedeng andun yung percentage, at the same time andun yung per dime, no? Dahil kung mag-i-inspect ka sa ang project site mo ay malayo, no? Then if you are to go there and inspect, then of course meron yung per dime, honorarium, and reimbursable expenses. For one phase of the project, an appropriate method of compensation may be used, and for another phase, a different method of compensation also can be applied, no? So by the way, yung kaninang reimbursable expenses na 100 kilometers, that is applicable only for other type of services other than design. Pag design services, the distance is at 50 kilometers, no? So let us now take a look at the schedule of fees. So we have these 10 major services. Redesign is outlined in SPP document 201. Document 202 is regular design. Document 203 is specialized architectural services. Document 204A is full-time supervision. Document 204B is construction management. Document 205 is post-construction services. Document 206 is comprehensive architectural services. Document 207 is design build services. Document 208 is architectural design competition. And the last one, document 209, is the professional architectural consulting services, or the PACS. Now, let us take a look at how much is the fees for these different types of services. For pre-design, document 201, the method can be any of the following. The multiple of direct personal expense. This is the most common method applied, no, for pre-designed services. You can also use the professional fee plus expenses, or the lump sum or the fixed fee, or the per diem honorarium plus reimbursable expenses, and you can also employ the mixed methods of compensation. Now, the architect should request for a 5% acceptance fee based on agreed professional fee upon the signing of the agreement. Now, I always recommend to use the word acceptance fee instead of down payment, no? Mas challenging kasi yung pakinggan na acceptance fee, no, kisa sa down payment, no? Down, parang negative ang connotation, no? So it can either be acceptance fee or mobilization fee, no? Now, the client shall make progress payments upon request of the architect within 7 calendar days from the submission of the statement of account, no? So after you have received the 5% acceptance fee, then you can now make progress payments, no? For the regular design services, it is based on one or more of the following. You now have the percentage of project construction cost. This is the most common type used for regular design services under document 202. But you can also employ now the new method, which is the unit cost method based on the percentage of construction cost. But aside from this, you can also employ the multiple of direct personal expense, provided that you are already very familiar with the construction schedule or project schedule, no? And expenses to be incurred for the particular type of service. We have the professional fee plus expenses also can be employed, lump sum or fixed fee, the per diem honorarium plus reimbursable expenses, and you have the mixed methods of compensation. Now, we now have these two types of contracts for regular design. We have the detailed architectural and engineering design services, or the DAEDs, or this is the full service, no? So this means that you have a single contract, no? Or there is a single contract between the architect and owner, and sub-consultancy contracts between the architect and the other professionals working with the architect. Ang advantage nito is that isa lang ang kausap ng owner, no? The architect only. Tapos yung mga design engineers are under contract with the architect, no? The second type is the detailed architectural design services, or the DADS, no? Which means that the architect and the engineering and allied professionals have separate contracts with the owner, no? So, nangyayari ito kasi minsan ang owner would only ask for your architectural design only, services only, no? Probably the client has already commissioned the other design professionals or engineers, so and they only need your services for the architectural part of the project. Now, let's go to how much if you are going to use the percentage method for regular design services. Now, the percentage is based on project classification, no? So let's take a look at the fee for group 1. Take note, you now have the recommended professional fee, or the RPF. We are not using anymore the minimum basic fee, no? Although sa ating code of ethics, sinabi na minimum basic fee, but since there are problems pertaining to how is that being followed, it was changed to recommended professional fee, meaning this will be your basis in finally computing for your professional fee. You can either go higher or lower from that recommended based on several factors that you have to consider. So ito yung kaya sinasabi ko na factors to consider. Mamaya i-discuss natin ano yung mga factors na yan. So for group 1, we have these particular buildings classified as simple buildings. So buildings of the simplest utilization and character, which are without complication of plan, design, or detail, and which require only a minimum of architectural finishes, engineering, and allied architectural elements like armories, bakeries, habitable agricultural buildings, and so on. Now, do you have to memorize these buildings? Syempre, mahirap yan memorize. So, an easier way to determine whether the building is belonging to group 1 is that if you look at these buildings, you will see that these buildings have either without interior partitions, they're just open inside, or the buildings have very minimal interior partitions. So with that, the building is classified as group 1 simple buildings. Now, how much will be the recommended professional fee? This is the recommended professional fee, RPF, for group 1. If the service is the full or the detailed architectural engineering design services, or DAEDs, the recommended professional fee, if the project construction cost is 50 million or less, is at 5% of the project construction cost. However, if the project cost would exceed 50 million up to 100 million, then you have to lower down the percentage to the amount that will be in excess of 50 million. So instead of 5%, nagiging 4% na lang. Over 100 million to 200 million, yung excess sa 100 million will be at 3%, at yung susunod naman over 200 million to 500 million range, all the excess above 200 million will be computed at 2%, and over 500 million to 1 billion, all the excess above 500 million will be computed at 1%, and if the project cost is the project construction cost is over 1 billion, then all the excess over 1 billion is computed at 0.5% or 0.5%. Now, for board exam purposes, ang tatanda lang naman natin siguro is the base, which is 50 million or less. So for group 1 is at 5%. If that is a detailed architectural design services, or DADS, the base fee, the recommended professional fee, is at 3% for 50 million or less. Now, how do you apply this tabulation? So kung 3% yung 50 million mo, that means yung first 50 million is at 1.5 million. That is your fee. Then in excess of 50 million, it will be computed at 2.4, and so on. So mamaya I'll give you an example of how to compute for this one. So halimbawa, you have this project, a project cost for a Group 1 building at 1.5 billion pesos. And you are doing detailed architectural and engineering design services, or DAEDS. So you have chosen 5. You have used the recommended PF for this project at 5%. So 5% of the first 50 million is 2.5 million. No? Take note that the project cost is 1.5 billion. So yung first 50 million doon sa 1.5 billion, your fee is 2.5 million. Then the next 50 million to 100 million, so this is above the first 50 million. You have a range of 50 million, so you have 50 million here computed at 4%. Now, so 4% of 50 million is at 2 million. So you have the next 50 million from the 1.5 billion. Your fee is 2 million. Now this one, over 100 to 200 million, computed at 3%. So this would have a range of 100 million, computed at 3%. So 3% of 100 million is, your fee is 3 million. So this 3 million is from the 100 million, part of the 1.5. So the next range, 200 to 500, is 300 million range. So this is to be computed at 2%. So 2% of 300 is 6 million. And so the next one, 500 million to 1 billion, the range is 500 million computed at 1%. So 1% of 500 million is 5 million. And over 1 billion peso, since you have 1.5, so over 1 billion is 500 million. That is computed at 1% or 0.5%. Based on 500 million, your fee now is 2.5. So you just add all of this, your total fee is 21 million. If you add this one, this one, this one, this one, it will be at 1.5 billion. So that is the project cost, and your professional fee is 21 million. Let us now go to Group 2. This is for buildings of moderate complexity of plan design, requiring a moderate amount of research and of engineering and allied architectural design. So maraming buildings dito, and this includes commercial buildings, recreational buildings, as well as institutional civic buildings. Meron din kasama dito rin ang residential, pero this is multi-story residential. So how do we determine buildings that will include under Group 2? Basta tandaan natin yon. Commercial, recreational, institutional, ano pa ba? And multi-story residential. Or better yet, buildings that are not part of Group 1 or Group 3. Kasi yung Group 1 kanina, madaling ma-identify. Group 3 mamaya also, makikita nyo, madali rin ma-identify. So if that building is not under Group 1 and Group 3, therefore it is in Group 2. So this is now the recommended professional fee for Group 2. Using the DAEDS for 50 million and less, it will be at 6%. Again, as the project construction cost goes higher, the computation for the percentage for the excess should be also lower, no? And now for the detailed architectural design services, or DADS, for 50 million or less, the recommended professional fee is at 3.6%. Then let's go to group 3. This is now buildings of exceptional character and complexity of plan or design, or requiring comparatively large amounts of research and of engineering and allied architectural design. So medyo marami din ito, but one way to determine whether the building is under group 3, complex building, is that the building would have a special equipment installed inside the building, no? So like hospital equipment, convention equipment, sports equipment, telecommunication equipment, etc., no? And the like, no? So pag meron mga ganong klaseng special equipment na gagamitin sa loob, and also that the building will have so many rooms like hotels, no? So maraming partitions, then that is under group 3. And so for group 3, the recommended fee for DAEDS is 7% for 7 million and less, and for DADS is 4.2%. So let us summarize group 1, group 2, and group 3. For DAEDS, the full services, group 1 is 5%, group 2 is 6%, and group 3 is 7%. That is for DAEDS, no? Now let us go to group 4. This is for residences, single attached or duplex, row houses or shop houses, or small apartment houses and townhouses. So yung multi-story ay hindi kasali dito sa group 4, no? Dahil ang multi-story residential ay nasa group 2, no? So for group 4, the recommended professional fee for DAEDS is 10% of the project construction cost, and for the DADS is computed at 6% of the project construction cost. Now, actually maganda yung karoon ng distinction between the full type of services, DAEDS, versus the architectural design services, or DADS, no? Kasi makikita talaga ng client na part of the fee being paid to an architect if doing full-time services, no, includes the fee for engineering professionals, no? So na-realize nila that architects is paid separately, and also design engineers are also to receive their respective professional fees, no? Ang disadvantage lang talaga noon sa DADS versus the DADS, no, is yung multiple contracts. But if that is the case, no, yung separate contracts, usually the fee of the architect is the comprise, no, the higher percentage versus the DAEDS. Halimbawa, ang DAEDS is 10%. For architectural design, you get 60% of 10%. That's why computed dito sa DADS is 6%. So yung remaining 40%, no, doon sa 10%, yun ang allotted for the other design professionals. Why 60% ang sa architect, no? dahil ang architect kasi is the one that will be coordinating all the work, no, of the different design engineers, kaya mas malaki yung percentage ng architect. Now we have group 5. This is for monumental buildings and other facilities requiring consummate design skill and much precise detailing. The recommended professional fee for DAEDs is 12% of the project construction cost, and for the architectural design services or DADS, the RPF is at 7.5%. Now for group 6, we have the repetitive construction of similar buildings. In this table, it shows the old computation for the percentage, but now we have this new one. For the first building, the computation for the fee is 100% of the RPF for type of building. The second building is at 50% of the RPF for the type of building, and third building will be at 40%, and fourth and succeeding buildings will be at 30% of the RPF for type of building. Ang example dito, let's say you are doing a regional office building, and you are only using one prototype design. So for the first building that you are to do office building, that means that you are to employ your fee for the office building category, no? So that is group 2. So let's say your RPF for group 2 is at 6%. Yung second building na gagawin mo, the second building, your fee now will not be anymore 6%, but 50% of 6%. So magiging 3% na lang ang fee mo for the second building. And the third building will be 40% of 60%, so that means 2.4% na lang yung third building. And yung fourth building mo is 30% of the fee for the first building, so that is 30% of 6% is 1.8%, no? Now your fee can make some few adjustments, no? Due to site condition, even though you are using a prototype design, but there could be major changes, no, because of the site condition. Now, why is this your fee becomes lower as you go along? Because for the simple reason that you now have a base plan to use, no? So it will be an easier work on your part. Let us now go to group 7. This is for housing projects involving the construction of several residential units on a single site, no? Let's say isang subdivision, and you are to do different house models, and each house model the client will be constructing many units. So again, this table shows the old percentage versus the new one, no? So the new one is for the first unit is 10%. That is the recommended. So saan ka nitong 10%? If you look at group 4, no, residential, no, dahil housing project to, so the recommended is 10%, and if that is DADS, the recommended is 6%. Now for the next 2 to 10 units, each unit will be computed at 50% of the fee from the first unit. 11 to 30 units, each unit should be computed at 40% of the fee for the first unit, and 31 to 50 units, each unit will be computed at 25% of the fee for the first unit, and succeeding units 51 and above, each unit will be computed at 15%. So how do you use this method of computation for the fee? Let's have an example. You have a 100 units of model house A. So you have prepared a house plan, for model house A, and the estimated project construction cost is 10 million per unit. So there will be 100 units to be constructed. The first unit, the recommended fee is 10%. So let's say that you use 10%. So 10% for the first unit, 10% of 10 million, your fee is 1 million. So the fee for the first unit is 1 million. For the second to the 10th unit, each unit will be at 50% of the first unit. So 50%, if this is your fee 1 million for the first unit, 50% of that is 500,000. And then you have 9 units, so it means that your fee is 4.5 million. Now the next 11 to 30 will be 20 units total, computed at 40% of the fee for the first unit. So 40% of 1 million is 400,000. So you have 20 units, so your fee will be 8 million. And for the next 20 units, will be computed at 25% of the fee of the first unit. So 25% of 1 million is 250,000 times 20 units will be at 5 million. And then all the remaining units, so you will have a remaining 50, because this one 20, 20, 9 and 1 is 50, so you have remaining 50, computed at 15% of 1 million. So that will be at 150,000 times 50 units will be at 7.5 million. So you now add all of your fees, you will get a total 26 million pesos. Take note, excuse me. Your fee of 26 million is you only prepared one house plan, house model A. So that is something that you have to think about. So you have to consider the percentage for the first unit, whether that 10% will be a good choice, or maybe you can change this so that you can get a more acceptable computation for your final professional fee. Let us now go into Group 8. Group 8 is for projects involving extensive detail, such as designs for built-in components or elements, built-in equipment, special fittings, screens, counters, architectural interiors, and development planning and or design. So the recommended professional fee for Group 8 is at 15% of the project construction cost. We go to Group 9. This is for alterations, renovations, rehabilitations, retrofit and expansion, additions to existing buildings belonging to Groups 1 to 5 enumerated above, and the compensation of services should be increased to 50% or a total of 150% of the RPF. So yung kanina na Groups 1 to 5, So if that will be an alteration or renovation, you can compute it at 150%. No? So let's say yung sa group 4, may bahay residential, you'll be doing renovation. If the recommended there is 10%, so it means kapag renovation ng bahay will be 150% of 10%. So 150% of 10% is now 15%. No? So you only have to multiply 1.5 because 10% times 1.5 is 15%. Let's go to the last group, which is group 10. So this is where the architect is engaged to render opinion or give advice, clarifications or explanation on technical matters pertaining to his profession. Now also refer to the pre-design services, SPP document 201 under consultation. The chargeable RPF shall not be less than 1,000 pesos per hour, subject to increase depending on the extent and coverage of the service required, as well as the location where the architect shall render his services. Now, when rendering services as an expert witness, the architect's fee shall not be less than 5,000 pesos per appearance, regardless as to whether the scheduled hearing took place or not. No? Because sometimes the architect is asked by courts to appear as an expert witness, especially if the case would involve some technical matters, no? And the expertise of the architect is needed to clarify things out. No? So the adjustment of the price shall be made at the time of the signing of the architect's contract of service, and the amount excludes the cost of transportation and accommodations when and where required. So if the location where you are to provide your service shall be in excess of 100 kilometers, then there will be an additional 60% of the amount. So yung kanginang una, yung sa consultation, if that is 1,000 per hour, then if the location is 100 kilometers away, then it means add 60%. It will now become 1,600. No? Now take note that yung 1,000 pesos na yon and the 5,000 pesos, the reference value is the Philippine peso as of October 2014. So you have to adjust now the value of the peso 2020 by just adding 5% every year. You can use 5% because that is the average so far of the inflation rate in the Philippines. So which means that the amount of the peso in 2015 is 5% higher. So just add 5%. Then 2016, again add 5% from the 2015 value, and so on, no? Until you reach the computation for the 2020 value of the 1,000 and 5,000. Now this is the manner of payment, no? So you don't receive the whole amount all at once, no? This is based on the phase or the stages of the work of the architect. So upon signing of the agreement, you have the you get a 5% as mobilization fee, no? Or the acceptance fee, 5% of the professional fee. Now the professional fee here is computed based on the initial estimate provided during the prior to the signing of the agreement, no? So you can compute your PCC based on the floor area, expected computed floor area for the project. Now, upon completing the schematic design services, you get an additional 15%, so that the total payments to be made by the client should be already around 20% of your professional fee. Now, your basis for the professional fee is based on the project construction cost submitted at that particular stage na schematic design, because there's a possibility that the construction cost, the estimated construction cost may be different from the initial one, no? So you just have to multiply it 20% based on the new estimate, and just deduct whatever is the payment made prior to the second payment. And upon completing now the design development services, your total, the cumulative payments must be a total of 40% of the professional fee. Again, there's a possibility that the construction cost estimated would change. So again, you base your computation of your PF based on the new statement of probable project construction cost, or the estimated construction cost. Now, upon completing the contract document services, your total fees should now be at 90% of the professional fees. Now, when you complete this particular phase, the reference for your computation of the SPPCC, or the estimated project construction cost, is more reliable, because you now have the drawings as well as the specifications. So anyway, once you compute the 90%, or you just have to deduct all previous payments made, so that whatever is the resultant, that will be your receivables. And within 15 days after the awards to the winning constructor, then you have to adjust your professional your payment up to 90% of your professional fee based on the winning bid price. And then upon completing the work, you now compute your professional fee based on the final project construction cost. 100%, and just deduct all previous payments. So how do you do this computation for the cumulative payments? So I'll give you an example. So this is a commercial building wherein your RPF, and the one you used is 6%, for the commercial building. So upon signing of the agreement, you have your computed construction cost is 50 million pesos for that building. So if your fee is based on the 6% of the project construction cost, then that will be at 3 million. So that is your PF, your professional fee, 3 million based on the 50 million statement of probable project construction cost, or SPPCC. So that upon signing, your mobilization component of your fee is 5%. So 5% of 3 million, that will be at 150,000 pesos. Now, upon completing the schematic design services, you must have a total of 20% of your professional fee based on the estimate or the SPPCC computed based on that particular stage. So let's say ang estimate naging 55 million na yung construction cost, So 55 million, your fee is 6%, so that means your PF is 3.3 million. So using the 20% of 3.3 million will be at 660,000 pesos. Less your previous payment, 150, your receivable is 510,000. Now, upon completing the design development services, the new estimate now is 52 million pesos. Medyo bumaba. So, your payment should be around 40% already of your professional fee. So, let's compute your PF. 6% of 52 million, that will be 3.12 million. Now, 40% of that will be at 1.248. Less the previous payments is 660 total previous. Your receivable is 588,000. Now, upon completing the contract document services, this is the working drawings, construction drawings, you must receive already 90% of your professional fee. Now, the PF is based on the estimate after completing that particular phase. Now, the estimated now is 53 million, the project cost. So, with that, 6% of 53 million is 3.18. So, your professional fee should be this is your PF, and 90% of that is equivalent to 2,862,000. Then we have to deduct the previous payments. Total is 1,248, so that your receivable is only 1,614,000. Now, within 15 days after the awards to the winning bidder, and that the winning bidder, the winning bid price is only 51 million, so bumaba. So which means that 6% of 51 million, your PF should only be 3.06. So if you compute the 90%, that will be less than this one. So merong excess na naibayad na sa'yo, there's no need na ibalik yon, no? Anyway, parang advance payment na sa'yo yon. Now, upon completion of the work, you must get now the full 100% of your professional fee. Your PF now is based on the final project construction cost, no? Final project construction cost. So if this is the final project construction cost, 6% of that is 3.24 million. So this is your total fees. Medyo lumaki itong 54 million because of some additions probably, no? So naging 3.24 million ang total construction cost. And you just have to deduct whatever will be your previous payments made to you. And so your remaining receivable is 378,000 pesos. So nag-a-adjust naman ang ang receivables mo based on previous payments. So medyo hindi naman ito nakakalito, but some clients find this very confusing. Bakit daw pabago-bago pa itong professional fees? So why not just base it on one figure? So that is now where the concept of the lump sum or the fixed fee will come in para madaling mag-compute. But you have to make sure na if you are going to do lump sum or fixed fee, as mentioned kanina, you have to be very sure of the scope of work, scope of services to be undertaken. Otherwise, malulugi ka kung maraming pinapadagdag yung kliyente. Medyo lumalaki yung construction cost at hindi ka nako-compensate dahil doon sa paglaki ng requirements ng project. So this is the fee adjustment factors na minimension kanina, na the reason why it is just referred to as recommended professional fee. No, you can meaning you can either go lower or higher than the recommended professional fee, wherein the reason for doing so will be based on some factors. No, so this is the fee adjustment factors. So you have to take note that industry has become increasingly complex, and each project will be subject to certain unique factors which must be considered when determining an appropriate fee. These variables or fee adjustment factors can affect the cost of professional services for the building, and sometimes the variable may result in a reduced fee, so lower than the recommended, such as limited project documentation or simple documentation, or the elimination of an entire phase such as bidding and contract negotiation if that is to be undertaken by the owner. So i-consider mo yung iba pang mga possible scenario na medyo malesen yung work mo, then there's a possibility that you can go lower than the recommended professional fee. However, if the requirements would become more complex than what is expected, then you have the choice whether to go higher than the recommended professional fee. So let us take a look at some of these factors to consider. One is project documentation, wherein the clients will require unique forms of documentation or different from the usual. Like the project documentation will be using a building information model or BIM, so that will be more expensive on your part in terms of on the part of the architect, because it means the architect will have to employ staff that are knowledgeable about BIM, and I think the fee for the staff with BIM knowledge is higher than those with just regular AutoCAD knowledge. No? There is often a need to provide electronic documents in a variety of formats to several different parties in the development of the project, whether for review and approvals and the preparation of shop drawings or for bidding purposes. So baka merong possibility na the required formats will not just be using AutoCAD, but some may be using other software, and so you have to include that in your operational expenses. You have to buy the licenses, as well as have the necessary staff that are knowledgeable on those type of softwares. Also, okay, the next fee adjustment factor that you can consider is about contract document submittal schedule. Like for example, yung mga tinatawag na fast track projects. So there is often a pressure to complete a project as soon as possible. And this type of projects na fast track would require additional fees because the architect may need to hire additional staff, pay staff for overtime work, and reschedule other work to accommodate the priorities of such a project. So may effect ito sa operational expenses kapag mabilisan yung pag-complete ng submission ng mga documents. The next fee adjustment factor that can be considered is construction technologies or new technologies. These would be appearing almost daily and would include the need for better energy performance, new building products and building systems, advanced construction methods and design tools. Using New technologies, construction technologies for the project can be costly sometimes, as there are often unknown risks in using products or systems that do not have a track record, or there may be additional certifications needed for that new technology, testing, submittals, or approvals required. And since that will be new and the architect may not be familiar, additional research or other services may be required to make use of that particular new technology. The next fee adjustment factor is third-party certification and may involve certification and documentation costs for third-party certification such as the LEED, the green, or the verde. The LEED is the US by the US Green Building Council, and green or verde is the local green building rating systems. So whenever a building is to undergo a green building certification, either by through green or verde, there's a need for documentation, and so that could be additional costs on the part of the architect as well. Another factor to consider is the construction bid mode that will be used for the project. Now, small projects with experienced and reliable contractors may require just the basic field review and contract administration services. On the other hand, more complex projects and builders with limited experience and newer methods of project delivery beyond the traditional design build will require more time, more services, and consequently additional fees. Also, the preparation of multiple bid packages and the administration of several bids and contracts may be costly. Next factor is the construction schedule. So if the construction schedule is to be extended, the architect's services also must be extended, and this increase must be compensated. I think I have mentioned this one yung kanina na you have to take note if you are using the lump sum or the fixed fee if you are using the fixed method, you have to incorporate in the contract the duration of the construction schedule, because if not, then there's a possibility that the work is extended, then lugi ka na. So you have to determine whether the project is to be done by a contractor, or there will be a construction manager or project manager that will take care of time control, or if the project is to be undertaken by administration by the owner, then there's a chance that the construction will be extended, no? Kasi usually kapag owner administered yung construction, walang pakialam yan sa time, no? So you have to take note of that. Now, if the schedule is also fast and protracted, decision times are reduced and fees may be adjusted accordingly. Another factor is construction administration, and most projects will require a level of service which exceeds that which is required to exercise a reasonable standard of care, especially during field review and contract administration of the project. So if you think that there will be a possibility that additional work will be undertaken because of the complexity of the project, like doing additional meetings, coordination, site visits with clients' representatives, requirements for the architect to chair or minute meetings, or additional clarification site visits resulting from the client's selection of specific contractors, subtrades, suppliers, and or products, then it means that there will be more work to be undertaken by the architect. So that that factor could determine in finally selecting your professional fee. Now, let us go to the document 203. This is Specialized Architectural Services. If that will be for architectural interiors, dealing with specific expertise for further enhancement of the architectural exterior components of a project, wherein the architect doing specialized architectural service is referred to as the consulting architect, who may be a holder of a valid specialist certificate issued by the board and or the commission upon due qualification or accreditation by the IAPOA. Now, for specialized architectural services, the fee is based on the following methods: percentage of project construction cost, the unit cost method, MDPE, PF plus expenses, lump sum or fixed fee, retainer, per dime, and the mixed methods of compensation. Now, for architectural interiors, acoustic design, architectural lighting, layout and design, and site development planning, the recommended professional fee for specialized architectural services will be at 10% to 15% of the cost of the work. So take note here, the percentage is based on the cost of the work, not the percentage of the project construction cost. So that is 10% to 15%. Now, the manner of payment is upon submission of the preliminary design is 30% of the professional fee of the consulting architect. Upon submission of the final design is 50% of the fee, and upon completion of the project is the remaining 20% of the professional fee. Now, if there is a separate consultant other than the architect of record, and the architect of record will have to coordinate with that specialist architect, then the architect of record will have to be paid an additional 5% of the fee of the consultant. That is for coordination work. For physical planning for building sites, this is another specialized architectural service. The recommended professional fee is 50,000 per hectare for the first 5 hectares, so which means that per square meter it will be at 5 pesos, because 1 hectare is 10,000 square meters, so 5 pesos times 10,000 will be at 50,000 per hectare. So that for the first 5 hectares the professional fee will be at 250,000. Now, over the 5 hectares, the RPF will go lower. Now, for the physical planning and the land is rugged with steep terrain, the fee shall increase by 20% to 30%, because work for this type of site analysis and studies to be undertaken will be more difficult. Now, the manner of payment will be the framework development plan is 30% of the recommended professional fee. The conceptual master development plan, or the CMDP, the architect will be paid 30% already of the professional fee, and upon completing the preliminary master development plan is the next 20%, and after completing the detailed master development plan is the final 20% of the professional fee. Now, these services apply only or pertain only to the physical planning outputs, and that does not include the additional work that may be required for the project, such as detailed engineering plans, utility plans as well. Now, for other specialized services, under the specialized architectural services other than the one mentioned kanina, the RPF can be computed using the multiple of direct personnel expense. No? That is man-months, or 22 man days multiplied by 8 man hours and multiplied by a factor. The factor here is 1.5 to 2.5. So basically this is MDPE. And other modes to be that can be employed is per diem plus reimbursable expenses, or retainer plus reimbursable expenses, or the rate cost times a multiplier plus reimbursable expenses. Let's go to full-time supervision services. This can be based on one or more of the following. So you have the percentage, the MDPE, the PF plus expenses, lump sum or fixed fee, the per diem, or the mixed methods of compensation. Now, if you are using the percentage fee, the recommended professional fee for full-time construction supervision is at 1 to 1.5% of the project construction cost. Now, if you compute it using this one and you find that the fee is too low, then you can use the other methods in computing the fee for full-time supervision. For construction management services, this is document 204B. You can use again any of the following methods of compensation: percentage, the MTPE, PF plus expenses, lump sum or fixed fee, per diem, honorarium plus reimbursable expenses, and the mixed methods of compensation. For CM, the recommended professional fee, if you are using the percentage method, is at 1.5 to 3% of the project construction cost. Other possible method to employ using construction management is the construction management contracting concepts like award fee provisions, price adjustment provisions, firm fixed price incentive, or the cost plus incentive fees, CPIF, or the cost plus adjusted fee, CPAF, or the cost plus fixed fee. Now, details on these particular contracting concepts can be studied if you go into further studies on construction management. Now, for post-construction services, this is document 205. This is building administration. So you have the following methods to employ: the value pricing, or percentage of gross rentals. This is the incentive type of compensation. Or you can use the monthly salary fee, or the multiple of direct personal expense, or retainer plus reimbursable expenses, or PF plus expenses. Now, if you are using the percentage, the recommended professional fee, RPF, is based on value pricing from 4% to 6%. For comprehensive architectural services, is document 206. You can employ these methods: the percentage, the MDPE, PF plus expenses, or the lump sum or the fixed fee, and the recommended professional fee for project manager is 2% to 5% of the project construction cost. Now, for design build services, this is document 207. It can be based on the following: the percentage, MDPE, PF plus expenses, lump sum or fixed fee, per diem, mixed methods, or either it can be built in the guaranteed maximum cost. So for design build services, The fee, if you are doing DBS by administration, the recommended is 7% of the project construction cost. And that is exclusive of the architect's fee for the regular design services. And if you are doing design build services on a guaranteed maximum cost, the recommended professional fee is 10% of the project construction cost, or the fee of the architect is already built in the guaranteed maximum cost. Again, it should be exclusive of the architect's fee for the regular design services. And lastly, for document 209 is the professional architectural consulting services. It can be based on the following: per diem, a retainer, a salary cost times a multiplier, or the fixed lump sum, or the percentage of total project cost. So these are the other provisions in the architect's guidelines pertaining to amendments to this document. So it provides that the UAP, being the IAPOA, shall continuously enhance the contents of this document to be responsive to new challenges and requirements of professional practice. Any amendment to this document shall be prepared by a special committee on the standards of professional practice of the Integrated and Accredited Professional Organization of Architects, or the IAPOA, in consultation with the PRC-PRBOA and other association of architects. The amendments shall be then submitted to the UAP National Board for approval. I'll show you an example of how to compute for the professional fee. This is the sample fee calculation worksheet. No? So you can see here in this sample a particular project and how much is what is the building classification and how much is the professional fee used, and the manner of payment, the different phases, and if there will be adjustment factors to be included, what will be the impact of the professional fee, until finally you come up with the final total professional fee, the detailed architectural design, and based on the probable project construction cost as well, computation for how much will be your professional fee based on the range of the construction cost. So you can see, you can get this sample worksheet from the document, the architect's guidelines documents. This also goes for the DADS, similar, same format. So you can you make use of this, or you can make your own sample worksheet. So this presentation is protected by copyright and intellectual property rights laws. Reproduction and distribution of this video presentation without written permission of the author and a sponsor is prohibited. Thank you very much, and God bless.